Hello, I'm Bentham, and today we're playing Factorio, and what I want to do for you today is give you a little tutorial, a walkthrough of oil, how to drill it, how to refine it, and how to turn it into various products like advanced circuitry and so on, you know, batteries and things like that. And hopefully by the end of this video you will be able to just set up your own oil producing system in your Factorio factory and not have too many problems with it. So I've got some oil in the ground here, I've got various bits of oil equipment, and I'm going to talk you through how the various things work and show you a couple of examples of how I've made them work in my factory. So, the obvious starting place is the oil deposits. So you can see here there are these little black things that you see, and on the map they appear as little pink squares, usually in clusters. You want to find a cluster if you can, because you're probably going to be using a lot of oil. So, if you look, it has a yield. At the moment there's mining hardness and mining time. Currently they are 1 for all deposits of crude oil. So the important thing is the yield. This one here, this is 69%. Up here we have 126 and 184. I'm not sure what 100 refer. Well, I suppose it'll become clear in a moment. So of course the first thing to do is get a pump jack. These are 3x3 objects which you place directly on top of the oil deposits. They are the programming positions the oil deposits so that you can always fit pump jacks on all of them, unless maybe there's some sort of glitch. So you can see I put all these on, they've started pumping. At the moment they only have their own capacity, so once that capacity is full they will stop. So you can see now that each of the pump jacks, if you look on the right, has an expected resources thing, and for this one it is 1.3 per second, on this one it's 1.8, on this one it's 0.7, and these reflect their yields. So for example this one here is 176, so if we get a pump jack and we put it on, then it's now 1.8 per second. So for every 100% you get 1 oil per second from it. Now as time passes, the oil that you get from the pump jacks will decay, and eventually it will get down to a rate of 0.1 per second, and it will stay at that. So it means that if you get enough pump jacks on enough oil wells, then you will be able to meet production needs, though it may take a lot. And what you will be doing for a very long time is continuously moving on your production, finding new oil deposits and setting up pump jacks there so that you can get oil into your system and keep everything running. So, now that we've got the pump jacks set up, what we want to do is set up the pipes. So we will start attaching them all together. You can put them all on the same network of oil. You can always connect things that produce a similar, well, the same liquid into one system, and it won't cause any problems. The problems start if you try and combine, say, oil and water in one pipe system. Things like that you always want to keep separate. So we'll connect them all up to the pipes, and then immediately the pipes will fill up. If you look on here, you can see the level is rising. The liquid will try and space itself evenly throughout the entire system, because that's how liquid flow works. Of course there is a little bit of delay, so if you have a really long pipe system, the level may be higher at the pump jack end than the other end, the end where it's going. What we can also do is add on a storage tanks. These are the storage tanks, and the way they work is they have an input on the top right corner and the bottom left corner. What you can also do is switch them round with R, so it's the top left corner and the bottom right corner. And it doesn't just go in at the top and bottom, it goes in at the side as well. So it is quite versatile. You can have pipes on any corner really. The only place you can't put them in are in the middle of each of the sides, because there aren't pipes there. And these will fill up in a very similar way to the pipes. So you can see the proportion of the pipes that's full of oil, and then if you look at the proportion of the storage tank that's full of oil, that is the same. So looking at pipes or looking at storage tanks will tell you what it's like in all sections of the system, at least to a rough degree. You've always got to take into account that there may be more on the production end than the consumption end. An important thing to note is that because of the way the oil flows, you don't need to use these pump items which have been introduced recently. You can use those to keep a particular pipe system clear if you need the oil to flow quicker for whatever reason, but generally you don't need to use any actual pumps in the system. The only time you need to use pumps is when you're pumping water, because in the case of oil and things like that, it will flow along naturally, but of course you need a pump to get the water out of a lake, and we will be doing that later because water is used in production. By the way, a convenient thing to use is Alt. If you press Alt, then it will give you it will tell you what is in the pipes and what is in the storage tanks and things like that, and it will also help with assemblers and refineries and things like that. It will just tell you what is inside them, what they are doing, and it's a good thing to just have on all the time. So, the obvious next step is refining. However, there is one thing that you can do with crude oil before you refine it, which is put it into barrels and take it out again. So what we have here is two assemblers, and what this one is doing is putting oil into barrels, and what this one is doing is taking it out. So if we look in here, you can see that empty barrels go in, and crude oil barrels come out. Each oil barrel contains 25 crude oil, and what is then happening is the inserter is transferring the full crude oil barrels into this assembler, and what this one is doing is taking it and turning it into empty crude oil barrels and 25 crude oil. So it's basically a way of transporting it long distances without having to use ridiculously long pipes, if you so want to. And later on I will show you a use that you can get from these. Also, it's an important thing to note is that the barrels are reusable. You can fill a barrel and empty it as many times as you want and it will stay in existence, and they only take one steel anyway. Oh, here's some research. Now, the next step in oil processing is actually refining the oil. So we have an oil refinery here, and if we put it out here, we turn it round, we stick it on. It doesn't matter which entrance the oil goes into. We'll put it into that one. And so what we now do is set it to basic oil processing. So what it does is it takes in crude oil and it churns out the three types of oil. So at the moment what it is doing is using 10 units of oil to produce 3 units of heavy oil. Yes, 3 units of heavy oil, 3 units of light oil, and then 4 units of petroleum gas. And I'll go into the details of these later. First we'll look a little bit more at the processing. So at the moment that's the ratio that we're using just by sending in oil. So what we can also do is change the setting to advanced oil processing. You get this a little later on after a bit more research. And what this does is it takes in 10 crude oil and 5 water, and it will produce 1 heavy oil, 4.5 light oil, and 5.5 petroleum gas. That's more oil produced overall, and the particular derivatives produced are more useful. So what we'll do is we'll hook up some water and we'll get that system going. So we're at a water source now, so what we're going to do is get a pump, stick it on, and then we'll pipe it all the way back to the base. And you should be familiar with this process as it's required for steam engines. Without steam engines you don't have power in your base. As you can see, it shows the water when you have alt enabled, which is very helpful in telling you what liquids are in what pipes. So I'll pipe this back and then show you the advanced refining. Right, now we have the water hooked up so we can use the advanced oil processing. So now we'll go on to the different types of liquid produced, or in the case of this one, gas. I will just quickly hook up some storage tanks for each of the liquids. Where have they gone? There they are. We will do that, and that, and that. Okay, so this is heavy oil. It's not actually used in that many it doesn't have any individual uses, except for lubricants. Lubricant is used in the fastest type of conveyor belts, and also in electric engines. And apart from that, it has no other use other than to be converted into things that you could use the other types of oil for as well. This is light oil. This does not actually have any particular things it's used to produce, though I do believe that heavy oil and light oil are used to produce, let's see, I think it's explosives or flamethrower propellants. We can look here. Okay, flamethrower ammo, yeah, it's made from 5 iron plates and then an equal amount of heavy oil and light oil. Apart from that, they're the only individual things that those two have. The most important one is petroleum gas. This is used for 2 things mainly. The first one is plastic. That's used in production in a lot of different components, though mostly it's used in the production of advanced circuitry, which is very important for a lot of advanced technology that you get later on in Factorio. The other thing it's used for is sulfur, and the purpose of sulfur is to be turned into sulfuric acid or into explosives. And then the sulfuric acid is turned into batteries with the help of iron and copper. So now we will look at the things that they all do. So if we look into the crafting menu, you can see that there's all sorts of different things we have here. So we'll start with what I've already mentioned. So, well, you can see here that the electric engine unit uses lubricant, which is green. It is a liquid, like the other things. So you would pipe it from the chemical plant that will be produced into the factory where whatever you're producing will be. Well, the electric engines or the conveyor belts, which I can also show you that they use lubricant as well. They're produced in assemblers, and the way you do that is you pipe the oil in. In fact, if we were to go back down to the system we have down here, you can see that the oil is piped into the assembly machines. When you ask them to produce something that involves a liquid, then the inputs areas and the outputs areas will appear, and then you can rotate them using R so that the input is in the correct location. So we'll go back to crafting, and you can see that what we can do is crack heavy oil into light oil. So what that uses is 3 units of water and 4 units of heavy oil, and it produces 3 units of light oil. What you can also do is crack light oil into petroleum gas that uses 3 units of water and 3 units of light oil to make 2 units of petroleum gas. And then what you can also do with all 3 of the kinds of oil is make them into solid fuel. So you can use 1 light oil, 2 petroleum gas, or 2 heavy oil to produce solid fuel. This works exactly like coal, basically. It is another version of coal. You can't use it in recipes that involve coal, but you can use it to fuel trains, steam engines, or cars, or anything else that uses coal as fuel, such as burner inserters and things like that, furnaces. And then you can also see we have sulfur here that uses water and petroleum gas, and then over here we have sulfuric acid that uses sulfur, water, and iron plates. And then the sulfuric acid is used in batteries, and then here we have explosives which use sulfur, water, and coal. So water is involved in a lot of the stages of production, particularly when related to petroleum gas, and I will show you how to produce all these various things in just a moment. So here we have the heavy oil products. What I've done here is I've taken the heavy oil from this tank and I've spread it between these 3 chemical plants. It's pretty easy to set up. You just place them down, you go into it, you select what they will produce. So this one is going to produce lubricant using 1 unit of heavy oil for 1 unit of lubricant. So the oil goes in, and in this case this one uses oil and water, so what we've had to do is pipe it underneath and swap them round. Unfortunately, at the moment there is no way, I believe, to reverse the way round that the chemical plants are. You can rotate them, and that can help in some cases, but sometimes you do just have to pipe stuff underneath other stuff to get them to arrive in the right order. So what you can see that this one is using water and heavy oil to produce light oil, and I'm putting that into that tank there. This one is producing lubricant just using heavy oil, and that's going into that tank there. And then this one is producing solid fuel using heavy oil, and I'm using an inserter to extract that and put it into this chest here. And then this could be piped off to steam engines or whatever you want to use it for. Its only use is to fuel things. So if you want to if you've got a coal shortage or you're using a lot of coal to produce other things, you don't want to use the coal, then you can use solid fuel instead. And because oil doesn't actually run out, it just slows down its production rate, you have the potential to be able to get the fuel to be a permanent thing. You don't have to keep moving. You don't have to keep making new mining drills for the coal. You can just keep on the the production of the oil-based fuel. So now we'll move on to light oil. So now we're on to light oil products. This is fairly similar. So we have solid fuel again from the light oil, and then we can also crack it into petroleum gas. I've not had them being produced this time because I'm running out of equipment right now. I would have to run back to base and grab a load more, and you can understand how it would work anyway. And then here we have the flamethrower ammo. Now this uses both the light oil and the heavy oil, and it also uses iron plates. So if we whack all the remaining iron plates we own into there, you will see that it produces some flamethrower ammo. So we could now use that to fuel our flamethrowers. And that's pretty much it for light oil. There's surprisingly little that it actually does. So now we move on to petroleum gas. This is the big one. So here's what you can do with petroleum gas. It's a little bit more complicated. Well, there's still only 3 things that you can make out of them, but then those things go on to make a lot more. So here you can see that we can make solid fuel as we could with the other 2 types of oil, and then we can also make plastic. Now this is extremely important in production, and you'll see that later on. I'm going to show you how plastic is used in production in the actual factory I built on this world rather than this demonstration thing that I'm building here. But then over here we have sulfur. Now this is a bit interesting. What you need for this is petroleum gas and a little bit of water, and it produces sulfur. And then sulfur, you can it's an item, so it's transported on belts rather than in pipes. And you can see here I've got two inserters. So one of them goes into this one here. Now this will produce explosives. What it needs is a little bit of coal. So we'll just stick some coal in there. So it uses coal, the sulfur, and some water to produce explosives. And then you can use explosives to make grenades, rockets, and all sorts of things like that. And then what you can also do is turn the sulfur into sulfuric acid. So using water, sulfur, and a couple of iron plates, which I've had to actually mine myself because I've run out of materials. I misjudged how much I would need here. And that will turn it into sulfuric acid. Now this is a liquid, so we store it in tanks. We've got a tank here that's filling up nicely. And what then happens is it's piped into this inserter here. So this is, not inserter, into this chemical plant here. So this chemical plant produces batteries. So if we look in here, this uses sulfuric acid, and then it uses both iron plates and copper plates to produce them. Batteries are particularly useful when it comes to making accumulators, electrical accumulators, so that you can keep power in reserve rather than constantly using the power that you're producing. And it's also used in some science packs. So that is pretty much it for the basic production that you get from the different oil things. I've had to deconstruct some of this stuff as I've gone to do it, but here you can basically see the entire system. The oil comes out of the ground, it can be stored in tanks, it can be put in barrels, it gets refined in one of two ways, depending on whether you want to use water and what sort of ratio you want of the different oils. It gets turned into three different products. Then heavy oil can get turned into these different products, which is light oil, lubricant, and solid fuel. And then the light oil can be turned into solid fuel, the petroleum gas, or it can be used along with heavy oil to make the ammo for flamethrowers. And then petroleum gas can be used to make plastics, it can be used to make solid fuel again, it can be used to make sulfur. Sulfur can then be turned into explosives, or it can be turned into sulfuric acid, which can be stored and can then be turned into batteries. And that is the process of how you use oil. What I'm now going to do is go to my base and show you how it works, how it uses oil, and just give you some ideas on how to implement oil into your factories. So, here is my oil mining outpost. You can see here that we've got various pump jacks that are pumping the oil, and then it's being stored in these tanks here, and it's also being barreled up. So we have an assembling machine here which brings in the oil and some barrels, and it puts the oil into the barrels. And then, as you can see here, we have some rails. So at the moment there are no barrels in the system. That's because the barrels cycle through. So the oil is put into the barrels, it goes onto this train then goes home, the barrels are offloaded, emptied, and then put back onto the train before it returns here to continue the cycle. So any minute now it should turn up. And here it is. So the oil, the empty barrels are being taken out, and they are carried along this belt system. What we're going to do is get onto the train because we want to catch it home. So as you can see, the barrels are going round. This insert is now picking them up, and they're going into this assembler and being filled with oil. And now they're coming back and being put back into this into here. You could make this more efficient by putting this nearer to the train. You could have them coming directly into the assembler and directly out again, but I didn't think of that when I made it, so this is how it is. So now all the barrels are loaded up and off the train goes. The train is on a timer, it's not based on whether it's loaded or not. If you want to know about trains, then I will probably do a tutorial on them in the future. At the moment I don't actually have the hang of the most complicated things myself. You can do multi-train systems. At the moment this is a single train system because that's all I really need. So now you can see the barrels are offloaded, and then what this inserter should do is pick up the barrels, and oh, there it goes. Yep, it's picked up some barrels, and then these are being emptied, and we've got some lag there. They're being emptied, and the empty barrels are being put back in. But because the oil system is full at the moment, there's actually no capacity for it to empty all the barrels. So in a moment this train will set off home again, and we'll continue the cycle. But we're not interested in that now. What we want to do is go and look at the oil processing facilities. Ignore the drones, they just deliver me all my materials. I've got very far in this particular file. So you can see here the oil is piped this way, and we have two refineries here. It's got a bit complicated because the system has been through a couple of different iterations. Why have these drones stopped? Interesting. Anyway, the oil is piped into these refineries. They refine it, of course, and then what happens is the oil travels down here. And here we have the storage tanks. So we've got petroleum gas, we've got light oil, and we've got heavy oil. As you can see, there's a couple of different things here. We've got the lubricant production coming off the heavy oil, and that's piped off in that direction. And then we have this, which is turning the excess heavy oil into light oil. And then we have these four here, which are turning all the light oil into petroleum gas. And I've worked out that this system keeps them roughly balanced. If I want to make any modifications, I could add or remove different chemical plants, or I could just switch them on and off. You can see over here an old facility. You can see that each of these pump jacks now has a production of 0.1 per second, and that will continue forever. So I will never quite run out of oil, even if I stop using all the systems. It will just it will just slow down, and then I can add more until eventually I have so many that when it's slowed down, it doesn't matter anymore. So I'll just wander over here as these drones swarm around. You see we've got an extra petroleum gas storage here. Now this is being pumped. Pumps is something I didn't actually really show you. Now I can't remember where I put the pump. You can see I've got pumps here. These are pumping the liquids out of the pipes and into the tanks just to keep the pipe system clear. This one is actually pumping it out, and this one goes up here through this pipe system to that storage tank there. You can see that here we have two plastic producing facilities, and they're putting them onto all the plastic onto some conveyor belts, and you'll see where they go later. Actually, we will go this way. So that, yeah, the plastic goes off this way. But then what we have here is the petroleum gas is piped along here and up to here. So this is the sulfur production. You can see we're producing explosives there, and then we're producing sulfuric acid. And the sulfuric acid is being stored in there and turned into batteries, which go along this way. They go off to a science lab producing facility, which isn't really that important right now. It's just important that they are producing batteries. So let's run this way as we get chased by our various drones that we have. In fact, no, we'll go up this way. So you can see the plastic is here. It's being piped underground quite a bit just to save space. It's split off at this point, but they both go to a similar facility. They both produce advanced circuits. So you can see here we have the plastic and copper wire being piped along, as well as some normal circuitry, and these are being turned into advanced circuits, and they're going off down here. And that is the extent of the plastic production. Now you can see here we're picking up the lubricant pipe again. Also, there's a bit of sulfuric acid. That's the thing I forgot to mention. You use sulfuric acid to produce processing units. These are made of advanced circuits and electronic circuits combined with a little bit of sulfuric acid. So they're like advanced circuits, but even more powerful. So following these lubricant pipes, we will go around here. All this complicated stuff. Don't worry, it's simpler than it looks. Maybe. You can see here it goes here, and I've actually combined these two facilities. They're right next to each other. So we have the electric engine production, and we have the turbo speed conveyor belts, or whatever they're called. These are both fueled by the lubricant, and thus they produce their products. And it's that simple. Here's my facility, by the way. I could have made it simpler, but I didn't. That's just how it is. So that was oil production. You've seen pretty much all of it there. You've seen all the techniques that I use to produce the various oil using things, and everything's lagging out again. But anyway, I hope this has been a good tutorial for you. I hope you found this extremely useful, and you can now go and use this information to improve your own factories. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. Also, if you want to see a base being built with that uses all these systems, then I've got a series where I'm playing through Factorio. I'm doing it at 4 times speed, so it doesn't take a million years to do. So you can go and watch me set up all the systems there, not only oil, but I'll do railways, logistics systems with robots and all that stuff. And I don't know, it'll be, depending on when you watch this video, it could be in any stage. It could be done, it could be on episode 6. But anyway, I can do other tutorials in the future if you want. You can ask me about those in the comments as well. Basically, I'll do what you say. If you want information about something, I can give you information about something. I can make videos, I can tell you in the comments. So anyway, this has been the Factorio Oil tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in future. So, until next time, I shall say goodbye, and thank you for watching.